Rishi Sunak has said that he wants to stop the anti-competitive practices of social media giants, and that seems all well and good. Now, Nadine Dorries, the erstwhile Minister of Digital Media, Culture and Sport, says, well, that's already going ahead. Yes, it is already going ahead in some ways with the Digital Markets Unit, the DMU for more acronyms, but it hasn't actually occurred, and there's no timetable for this to happen, and a timetable wasn't set out in the Queen's speech. But moreover, the documentation, the bills which were being presented by Nadine Dorries's ministry under her authority are apparently riddled with technical errors. It's not simply a matter that they're going to be challenged by the opposition. It's a matter that they haven't been properly formulated and properly presented. So on a technicality, they are going to fail. Now, the European Union plans to put forward its own legislation, the Digital Markets Act. So when finally Britain does it, when finally they replace Nadine Dorries with somebody who can actually do the job, we're going to be playing catch-up. Rishi Sunak is absolutely right to be identifying this as something that needs to be done soon. And it should have been done in the last year and wasn't, because Nadine Dorries was in charge of the dcms, this Digital Culture, Media and Sport. That's a ministry which is overweight. It does too many things, and in the past, the people who have been fronting that ministry have either been interested in sports, or they've been vaguely interested in some aspect of the higher brow arts. It's time that the arts were shoved off into one ministry and sport to another. Both of these activities bring huge revenue into this country, and it's time that was recognised. This is not some sort of icing on the top of the cake. This practically is the cake that we now have to offer to the world. So we ought to be doing it properly. We ought to be doing that properly, and we ought to be doing education properly. And we need to probably subdivide education so that we are fully aware of the education that we market abroad and the people that we encourage to come over here, so that they are not caught up any longer in the home market hostile environment which was set up by Mrs. May. If we want people to come here and study in this country, and by God we do, because we want to export our values, then we have to make sure that those people are secure, protected, and that they're doing what they say they're doing. That is partly a Home Office job, but if the Home Office can't do that properly, and of course it can't, actually most of the time when the Home Office has been saying they've been chasing up people, they've been chasing up students because they're properly documented, and they've been persecuting students because they're properly documented, and trying to catch them out on technicalities because they're young and inexperienced. This is a farce, and it's time that the Home Office did its own job and focused on people who were illegal. They cannot be illegal until they've been processed, so the Home Office needs to process those applications and then declare these people illegal and then throw them out of the country and then pursue them and then also make deals with the countries where they've come from and, if necessary, as Rishi points out rather brilliantly, withhold foreign aid. It is so simple, it is not rocket science, and that's another area where we need to be working. There are so many things that we have to offer, and instead we are pootling around, rearranging the deck chairs and redefining laws which are already there and then taking credit for it. Liz Truss has done nothing. We talk about, or she talks about, and her team talks about the many trade deals she's done. She's done two. Two. The rest are already in the can. Oven ready, as Boris would say. That is not a lot of work. I'm appalled at the level of deceit which is going on. They might as well be taking out citizenship in Russia for the level of deceit that is being played with. We really need to set standards and say, this is how we behave, because what we're seeing on television, and particularly from Liz Truss's camp, partly organised by Nadine Dorries. That's not the country I recognise, and it hasn't been for some time. And I know I've been criticised for singling out Nadine Dorries, Liz Truss, and Priti Patel. It's not because these people are necessarily awful people. I'm sure I'd love a glass of sherry or a cup of tea with any one of them. But they do not represent my country, and they do not represent my values. And I think those values are values I share with a great many other people. These values are things like integrity, hard work, keeping your word. These are the values I consider important. And somebody who doesn't read their brief before they go into a meeting, somebody who tries to bluff their way through their own committee meeting, somebody who tells stories which are almost certainly not true, about other people who are not in a position to defend themselves, in a privileged position. These people shouldn't have the time of day. Somebody who is alleged to have bullied, and in fact has pretty well been found out to have bullied, and is kept in office. And then when you telephone the Home Office or HMRC or something, there's this endless spiel about how the agents will not tolerate abusive language. Of course they shouldn't, but nor should civil servants, and certainly not from the minister. We have standards. Those standards should be established and maintained at the top. That's what we follow. And I don't follow the standards that I've been seeing. And it's not just Priti Patel, Liz Truss, and Nadine Dorries who are so in need of a makeover, of a realignment, of a restart. It's also people like Dominic Raab, Gove, and Gavin Williamson, of course, who has been in the background performing his own dark arts because he can. These people all need to go. Now, where do they go? It's very simple. They all go into the House of Lords. And I know I was horrified by the thought of Nadine Dorries going into the House of Lords, but if that's the only place to shut her up and contain her, that is what must happen. It's not rocket science. It's politics.